Has GitHub simply become too big and too complex to actually function properly? I do not know the answer to that. But what I do know is things have been causing issues. Over the past couple of years, there's been more and more outages, especially with the recent addition of all of the AI tooling, the AI code scraping. Things have been getting more and more unstable. And there is a project which has recently spoken on this, the Ghostty terminal. In a post by Mitchell Hashimoto, Ghostty is leaving GitHub. Writing this makes me irrationally sad, but Ghostty will be leaving GitHub. I'm GitHub user 1299, joined February 2008. That was the first month GitHub was operating, and he was very likely one of the first 2 or 3 days. This timing, though, is very interesting. He wrote the blog post about a week ago, but the day that he published this, or the day after he published this, there was this CVE, Securing GitHub. Wiz Research uncovers remote code execution in github.com and GitHub Enterprise Server. This blog post is not at all related to that. It's just very interesting timing. If you do want to check out the RC for yourself, I will leave that link down below. It's not really relevant to what we're talking about today, though. Maybe I'll do a separate video on this. Since then, I've opened GitHub every single day, every day, multiple times per day, for over 18 years. Over half my life, a handful of exceptions in there. I'd love to see the data, but I can't imagine more than a week per year. So 358, 359 days per year, depending on which year it happens to be. Basically all of the time. Now, some of this does get arguably a little bit over dramatic for what we're talking about, but if you've been involved with GitHub, you've been involved in any service for this long, I understand getting, a little bit sappy. GitHub is the place that has made me the most happy. I always made time for it. When I went through tough breakups, I lost myself in open source on GitHub. During college at 4 a.m, when everyone is passed out, let me get one commit in. During my honeymoon while my wife is still asleep, yeah, GitHub. It's where I've historically been happiest and wanted to be. It sounds like having an affair with your partner. I get it. I do get it, but maybe a bit much. Some might call this sick, but my hobby and work and passion all align, and for most of my life, they got to also live in one place on the internet, GitHub. Did you know I started Vagrant, my first successful open source project, in large part because I hoped it would get me a job at GitHub? It's no secret, I've said this repeatedly, and in my first public talk about Vagrant when I was a mere 20-year-old, I joked maybe GitHub will hire me if it's good. I know some people tend to forget about this because the name Mitchell Hashimoto is now probably more associated with Ghostty amongst regular users, but here's one of the people involved in starting HashiCorp who've made a number of really popular tools that if you're in the enterprise space, very likely you have probably interacted with. GitHub was my dream job. Focus on the was there. I didn't ever get to work there, not their fault, but it was the perfect place I wanted to be. The engineers were incredible, again, were. The product was incredible, and it was something I lived and breathed every day. I still do and consistently have for these 18 years, enough time for an entire human to become an adult, all on GitHub. Most of this time was when GitHub was still an independent product, and for many people, that sentiment did kind of shift in 2018 when they're acquired by Microsoft for $7.5 billion. Whilst this was certainly a problem for some and actually got people talking about other alternatives like Gitlab and various things like that, GitHub still remained the backbone of the internet, and even to this day, is still very much the backbone of the internet. But it's the backbone not because people love it, but because they are invested into the environment. Lately, I've been publicly critical of GitHub. I've been mean about it. I've been angry about it. I've hurt people's feelings. I've been lashing out because GitHub is failing me. Every single day, and it is personal. It is irrationally personal. I love GitHub more than a person should love a thing, and I'm mad at it. I'm sorry about the hurt feelings to the people working on it. Now let's go and take a look at some of those comments. All of these are relatively recent posts. One of the most requested GitHub features in years, and the website looked like it was designed by someone 9 years into a 2-year community college program. Here's what I'd do if I was in charge of GitHub in order. Establish a North Star plan around being critical infrastructure for agentic code lifecycles and determine a set of ways to measure that. Fire everyone who works on or advocates for Copilot and shut it down. He's not against AI, he just thinks GitHub and Copilot are doing a really bad job at it. Buy Pierre and launch agentic repo hosting as the first agentic product. Repos would be separate from the legacy web product to start, since they're likely burdened with legacy cross-product interactions. Re-evaluate all product lines and initiatives against the new North Star. I suspect 50% cut to make room for different ones. Yes, being critical infra for every other AI tool is a bigger business, and if GitHub burns, then Copilot within GitHub goes to zero. Basing long-term strategy off a trailing indicator is bad. Realistically, I think Copilot gets spun out if we must be totally practical, but I don't think it should live with GitHub. Excellent. This is exactly what GitHub should have done 2 years ago. Be a partner for the AI consumption, not a competitor. This is what I'm yelling into the void about here when I say GitHub has lost the plot with AI every single day. It's increasingly becoming difficult to do real work with GitHub. Git isn't the issue since I can work offline. It's issues, PRs, CI, etc. It's not the underlying Git. That's totally fine. It is GitHub's glue and GitHub's extra stuff they attach onto it with their interface. Imagine going to work and your workstation suddenly restarts a few times a day. That's what it feels like using GitHub. I've felt this way for a long time, but for the past month, I've kept a journal where I put an X next to every date where a GitHub outage has negatively impacted my ability to work. Almost every day has an X. On the day that I'm writing this post, I've been unable to do any PR work for about 2 hours because there is a GitHub Actions outage. This is no longer a place for serious work if it just blocks you out for hours per day, every day. Here's the interesting thing though. So this would have been done on April 21st, April 20th, somewhere around that point. If we look at the GitHub status, there's nothing reported on that day for GitHub Actions. It doesn't say there was an outage whatsoever. Yes, there are outages in earlier days for sure, but nothing here. This was a publicly discussed outage. People were talking about this and nothing is there. So I have to assume that their outage tracking is just not working properly. And I know outage tracking is complicated because, well, you know, you're tracking something that is not working, but even so, with it being such a discussed outage, I don't know how this isn't here. A far more accurate outage page is this one here, the missing GitHub status page. And now you're starting to see the problem. 89 incidents in the last 90 days, 84.92% uptime. This is really bad. There have been 5-hour partial outages with various things not working. There have been these major 10-hour outages. Again, it appears like the way they are reporting the status is not at all accurate, because this is way more relevant and way more descriptive of what people are used to dealing with. Others have put together very similar data. GitHub's historic downtime, scraped and plotted. It does kind of misrepresent a little bit because the bottom down here is 99.5%. I know with it dropping this much, it looks like, oh, 0%. This is a 0.5% outage in some of these months, but 0.5% outage, this is multiple hours per month. And if you're working on GitHub every single day for 8+ hours a day, you're gonna hit one of these outages. And here we have it broken down by various products that GitHub offers. And as you can see, actions are the ones where things tend to break quite a bit. Actions are your CI stuff, your GitHub automation. If you're a regular developer on some random little project, you probably aren't even using actions. If you're on a large-scale project, though, 100% you are interacting with those. It's not a fun place for me to be anymore. I want to be there, but it doesn't want me to be there. I want to get work done, and it doesn't want me to get work done. I want to ship software, and it doesn't want me to ship software. I want it to be better, but I also want to code. And I can't code with GitHub anymore. I'm sorry. After 18 years, I've got to go. I'd love to come back one day, but this will have to be predicated on real results and improvements, not words and compromises. I'll share more details about where the Ghostty project will be moving in the coming months. We have a plan, but I'm also very much still in discussions with multiple providers, both commercial and FOSS. When we're dealing with a project the scale of Ghostty, much like, obviously considerably bigger, but the Linux kernel, it's not a matter of just, migrate the code to another repo and then everything is done. If you want to move the community over, the issue tracker, the PRs, the actions, all of this stuff, the wiki, all of this, there's a lot to be done. And very likely, it's going to result in additional products you need to run as well. My personal projects and other work will remain on GitHub for now. Ghostty is where I, our maintainers, and our open source community are most impacted, so that is the focus of this change. We'll see where it goes after that. If it goes well for Ghostty, I can very well imagine all of it leaving GitHub. This thread was also made over on Hacker News, and Mitchell did comment here. Again, maybe being a little bit dramatic because that's what we're doing here, I guess. I know this is ridiculously dramatic, but it's the truth. I actually cried writing this blog post. Tears hit my keyboard. I'm embarrassed to say. Nobody should cry over a SaaS that is software as a service, of all things. But GitHub has meant so much more to me than that, all laid out in the post. I have an unhealthy relationship with it. It's given me so much, and I'm so thankful for it. But it's not what it used to be. I don't know. We've been discussing it off and on for months, really started seriously discussing it a couple of weeks ago, and made the final decision a few days ago. Putting metaphorical pen to paper and hitting publish makes it so very real. I'm sure folks will make fun of me for this. It is a stupid thing, but I truly love GitHub, and I hope they find their way. As it currently stands, the Ghostty GitHub is still being used. Code was committed literally just an hour ago. Issues are being opened, PRs are being opened, discussions are happening, actions are running. This is going to take some time for them to migrate off, but I will be curious to see what the end result actually looks like, and if others are going to do the same, because you can very well say, I'm going to follow Ghostty, I'm going to do my own thing, but it's actually a lot more difficult to fully commit to that plan. But let me know your thoughts down below. Do you use GitHub? Have you noticed some of these problems? And have they started to annoy you? Or are you just a Gitlab, a Gitty, or something? Maybe you just use raw Git, and this is not even a problem to you. I would love to know. So if you liked the video, go like the video, go subscribe as well, and if you really liked the video and you want to become one of these amazing people over here, check out the Patreon subscribes Daily Bearer Pay linked in the description down below. That's going to be it for me, and I'm a ghost.
Something like this.